Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Wetzel, and I channel information from the Akashic Records. Thank you for joining me. Um, Today is December the 22nd, 2024, and it's been a very strange day for me today. And so I thought that I would begin to ask more questions. So, I keep hearing the message about a time shift and a new dimensional reality. And my question originally, when I was just having my conversation with the Akashic Masters, was what's happening in 2025? And this is what keeps coming up is this time shift and a new dimensional reality. So I thought that I would ask about it. So I'm going to channel my messages from the Akashic Records, and I'm going to share them with you. So what my question is to the records, to my masters, first of all, is what are the monumental, the big changes that are going to occur in 2025 that would be the most beneficial for us to know about today? And and they're jumping in and saying, and this is what we want you to know. What we want you to understand is that the shift in reality is taking place. It's grabbing hold and holding on tightly with a firm grip. And what we want you to understand is that the humans upon the earth are changing rapidly. And if you will all begin to recognize how you have had the rug ripped out from underneath you in the past several months, you'll begin to understand and gain a better reality. And what we are referring to is life is changing. What we want you to understand is that there have been many individuals that have grasped or gained the idea or the concept of letting go of the past. And what we want you to understand is that this is the new dimensional reality that we speak of. What we want you to understand is that as the humans begin to let go of the past dimensions of consciousness and the reality that they were once living in, and allowing themselves to move forward into a new truth, you'll all begin to understand how a new dimensional reality is taking place. And this is what we want you to understand. We want you to gain a better concept of what is currently happening. So let's break it down for you. So what we want you to understand is that this step one of this process of letting go of the old dimensional reality is letting go of the past. And why we want you to understand this as the human race is to truly gain the concept and the construct of what is happening. What we want you to understand is that at this particular time, not only is the gravitational pull increasing for the humans to develop a more intrinsic reality, we also want you to understand that the mind is shifting to a higher level of consciousness so that it can let go of what once was. What we want you to understand is that many individuals will find themselves forgetting about the past. They'll begin to recognize that it's harder and harder to recall what was yesterday as they move into the future. And what we want you to understand is why this is so significant. We want you to understand that the societal beliefs are being broken down, and this is how this is transpiring. We want you to understand that as the human race begins to level up to a new dimensional consciousness, they'll begin to recognize that the old ways or the ways of the past are no longer valid. And what we want you to understand is that it is simply the idea of forgetting what once was. Okay, so the way that I'm understanding that they're explaining this is that as we continue to move forward and we are letting go of our own personal past beliefs or past conditioning, past trauma, past fears, all of these things that we're looking at that happened yesterday, that happened from the time that we were born to the present moment. All of the traumas, the belief systems that society put on us, the belief systems that our parents put onto us, which was all created throughout history to get us to the point to where we are today. And what I'm seeing very clearly is that as we let that go, we're going to have a harder and harder time remembering that that's the way that it used to be. So what they're showing me is the belief system of racism. And I'm seeing like all these different races are lined up in a line. And you see somebody that may be Asian, somebody that's Italian, somebody that is that's Mexican, someone that's French, someone that is Swedish, someone that is American, someone that is Canadian. And when we start looking at, there's differences in the way that we look. Our skin colors are different. We may have different features. We may have differences. But as we move forward, we're not going to remember why we separated ourselves from these different races. And they're saying what we want you to understand is how significant this is. And as you begin to recognize that you can move forward in the truth of what is, which is the love and the consolidation of all beings, you'll begin to recognize that you no longer remember that there was ever a separation, that there was ever a difference between one person and another. And so what we want you to understand is that this dimension of reality is significant in the growth of what and who humans will become, because humans will no longer see that there is a significant difference between one another and begin to recognize that you are all one. And so what we want you to understand is that as you move forward and you become more aware of what this means, you'll begin to understand that it is harder and harder to hold on to the past, as it is no longer a part of your physical structure. So basically meaning those old energy patterns, the cellular structure that was built around those old belief systems, the old energy patterns that were built around those old belief systems are going to be no more. And so we're not going to remember what it was like to have this idea of separation. It's not going to be anymore. They're saying there'll be no such thing. And so what we want you to understand is to recognize that this is a possibility as it is being created at this very time. And so what we want you to understand is that humanity is time jumping. And so what we want you to understand is that with the dimensional shift that is occurring, that is creating the ability to forget what once was and move into the future, you'll begin to recognize that all of humanity will see life in a different aspect than what it is today. And what we want you to understand is that it's a time shift that is moving you up to a faster rate or a faster time frame. And what I'm seeing is like time speeding up and time is moving faster to take us to this new understanding of who we're becoming. And so what we want you to understand is that it is literally like an individual that is jumping from the ground level to the second floor of a building. And so what I'm seeing is that if I was walking into a building, I'm on the ground floor and I'm seeing myself literally jumping to the second floor, with not even going up the stairs or taking an elevator. I'm time jumping. I'm literally jumping into this new level of consciousness, or this new dimensional reality, which is being created for the humans at this particular time. And what we want you to understand is that those humans that have traveled further down their path and have allowed themselves to accept the idea of shifting and changing into a higher level of consciousness will begin to recognize how easily this time shift will occur within them. And so, what we want you to understand is that it's being presented to all human beings. And what we want you to know is that, once again, the individuals that are finding themselves at a place of release will jump into this new level of consciousness with both feet, and there will be no hesitation. But what we want you to understand is that this door is opening up on January the 1st. And what we want you to understand is that the time level and the time dimension of that specific date is of significant importance as you begin to recognize the calendar change. And as the calendar changes from one date to another, the dimensional reality will shift and change as well. And so what we want you to understand is that basically you are moving into a new portal of time. And so what you'll begin to see is that 2025 will be a hectic one. And what we want you to know is that there will be a lot of moving parts that will be taking place in this specific time frame. 2025 is offering human beings the ability to upgrade in a way that they haven't before. And so what we want you to understand is that if you choose to walk through this portal without the fear, you'll begin to understand that there will be parts and aspects of your life and of the past history that will no longer be available to you, which is the understanding that the division between one another, the hatred, the anger, will soon fade away, so that the human physical structure will no longer feel or hold on to those belief systems. They'll be unavailable to us anymore. And so what we want you to understand is that if you choose to move forward in this specific dimension of reality, you will soon find grace and ease. You will soon find the ability to transition into a new way of being without fear or anguish. And what we want you to understand is that the time shift is happening on the significant value of 1/1, January 1st. And so what we want you to understand is that this is your opportunity as human beings to move forward in a way that you haven't been able to before. We want you to understand that there's a physical construct that has been created in order for the physical being to shift and to up level to this specific time frame. And what we want you to understand is that the reality will be that you will still be on earth and you will still be present in that specific moment on the earthly plane. However, your physical structure will be on a different level of consciousness than what others are. But what we want you to understand is that you're simply up-leveling to a state of consciousness that others have not gained. So what we want you to understand is that even though you will have the ability to have a two-dimensional life, you'll begin to understand how to maneuver through it and gain the process or the concepts to be able to maneuver through the ups and the downs of those who have not transitioned. But what we also want you to understand is that this is the training ground for all humans to be able to understand how to shift their consciousness and live in a 3D world. And so what we want you to know is that although there are other human beings that will function on the 3D level, your physical being will still be on the earthly plane, but your essence and the ability to shift and transfer to the higher level of consciousness will be so. So what I'm seeing is that for those of us that are shifting into the fifth dimension level of consciousness on January 1st, we have the ability to do it. And basically what I'm seeing is that it's more or less of the agreement to do so. I agree to allow myself to transform into this portal of time and energy so that I can live in and I can exist in a different place of peace and not stay in this reality of the hate and the anger. And so as and again, this is a little bit hard for me to fully understand myself. So I'm trying to ask the questions and be able to answer them for you as well. So hopefully this is going to make sense. Okay, so if I say I'm ready to walk through this portal, I'm ready to shift into this different level or dimension of reality, I agree and I accept this assignment. And in the human structure, I will physically move into this different dimension of understanding. But with the understanding that when I do this, that the past is going to be the past. And it's going to be very hard for me to recall times like the 1920s, the 1950s, the 1880s. It's going to be hard for me to recall what happened throughout these time periods because of the energy that was there. All of the stuff that was created, those energies, these emotions, these belief systems that were created in these time periods that are being carried out today, in 2024. I'm giving my spirit, my soul, my energy, the permission to shift out of that realm of consciousness into this newer realm of consciousness, or this new dimensional reality, which basically is the fifth dimension. So if I choose to do that, I am still going to be here on Earth. I'm still going to be in this physical body. And I'm still going to be interacting with people that have not transitioned or shifted into this new dimension. But what the difference is going to be is that I'm also going to have the knowledge and understanding of how to maneuver around these old belief systems in a way that is much different than what it is today. Because the way that we are today, we still hold people responsible for their belief systems. I don't agree with you, you don't agree with me, so therefore we're enemies. Or you don't look like me, and so you're my enemy. You fall into this category, and so I don't care for you. You're a bad person. Or maybe you did something to me or said something to me, 5 years ago that I'm still holding a grudge about. That's the 3D dimensional reality. And what we'll find is that if we choose to walk through this energy field, this energy portal, then we will still be standing here on Earth at this particular time. But those old belief systems won't be present within us. And we will be able to move through and around all of this old heavy energy without being affected by it. And how I see it is that it's almost like an energy, or I'm kind of see it like a smoke, like if you blow out a candle and it has the stream of smoke that comes up, it's that little thin stream. But what we'll do is that if you have a bunch of people, and for some reason I'm seeing like a bus terminal and people are standing around, but our energy is weaving in and out of all of those individuals, but it's not getting wrapped up in any of them. It's just maneuvering around through it, being in the highest essence of who we are. And they're saying, understand that this is a reality. It's a fact. And recognize that all humans that are standing upon the earth at this particular time have the ability to do this. It's simply the choice and decision of allowing the mind to accept the possibility. And so what we want you to understand is that 2025 is the time shift. It is the time that all individuals can shift into this understanding if they choose to do so. But what we also want you to understand is that the portal will stay open throughout eternity. Basically, from here on out, that portal is not ever going to close. But for us, those that are willing to move forward will have the ability to truly walk into that portal on January 1st and understand how significant this is. And so what we want you to understand is that the reality is that humanity can shift and change in a blink of an eye if they choose to do so. And so what we want you to understand is that you all have this ability. We also want you to understand that 2025 is being presented to all humans and all of the aspects of their existence as a gift. And they're saying it's a gift of nature. And so what we want you to understand is that by opening this portal, we also want you to understand that all consciousness will be shifting and changing into this specific dimension. And so what I'm seeing is the deer. We want you to understand that plant life will shift and change. The animals, and I'm seeing penguins and sharks and snails. All life has the ability to shift into this level of consciousness. But what we also want you to understand is that the natural life will not hesitate, that it will move forward in the truest essence of what it is and who it is in order to survive. And so what we want you to understand is that the most natural life understands the reality of shifting in consciousness and understands that it is for the best and it is for mankind to be able to survive and thrive. And so again, what we want you to understand is that 2025 is opening a portal. And so what all humans can expect is the ability to shift into this consciousness. But what we also want you to understand is that there will be shifts in remembering. And I'm seeing that, people will think that they have dementia. And they're saying, but recognize that that's not what it is. It's truly the physical aspect of allowing the old to be forgotten and the new to be remembered. And this is what's happening. And we also want you to recognize that this will be a continual process and that there is no need to fear, as the human physical structure will again continue to stay upon the earth. It will just be in a different reality or different dimensional reality than what it's seen today. But what we want you to understand is that there will be two levels of consciousness that are upon the earth. And what we want you to know is that the ability for the 3D individuals to uplift, they always call it up level up, uplift to the fifth dimension is always provided. But what we do want you to understand is that once you change or agree to continue to move forward in the fifth dimension consciousness, you will not return back. In other words, you won't go back to the old ways. But I also want to make sure that it's very clear that even if you choose to walk through this portal or truly accept the ability to shift into this fifth dimensional consciousness, that our physical bodies are still right here. We're still going to be exactly as we are. We're still going to be driving cars. We'll still be doing our everyday jobs. We'll still be functioning the way that the earth functions at this time. However, there's going to be shifts made over time due to this up level of consciousness. But I have a lot of people that say, that have said to me that, when we level up, that our physical structure is not going to be here anymore. But actually it is. It is going to be exactly as we are in this physical form. We'll just perceive things differently. Our energetic auras will be more present. They're calling it the electromagnetic field will be more prominent than what it's been in the past. And you'll recognize that your mind doesn't identify another with the same coherence as it does today. Meaning, like if I look at somebody and my eyes start defining what they look like or categorizing them, that's the 3D. that's what's going to change. And what we're going to find is that we're going to start picking up the energy patterns of others before our eyes start to identify what we think that a person should be categorized as. And so, even though we are all staying in this physical body, our perceptions, like we receive energy differently, we'll feel it differently, we'll respond to it differently, we'll work more on that intuitive basis than directly from the mind's constructs and the mind's belief systems. Because remember, we're basically starting a new way of perceiving and identifying things because we're not remembering those old structures. And that's what's going to be happening in 2025. They're saying, so, but what we want you to recognize is that all is well and all is safe. There will not be an individual that is left behind. Every human that is walking upon this earth will have the opportunity to upgrade to a level of consciousness that will create more peace and love. And so what we want you to understand is that you have the ability to do the same, and we hope you hear us clearly. We simply want you to understand that the love that resides within you is being magnified to a level that cannot be denied. And this is what we want you to understand. Take advantage of the opportunity and allow yourself to transition into a new way of being. This will occur beginning on the January 1st deadline. It's not the deadline. Basically, it's the opening. And it's interesting because what I'm really beginning to understand is that even though we've all gone through this shifting of letting go of these old belief systems, we had to let this stuff go before that portal opened, because we wouldn't be able to handle that energy, the full-fledged fifth dimension of consciousness, if we haven't started weaning off of those old ways. And this is what's being created. And that's why it's so important to do your work and let go of these old belief systems so that we can transition and go through this portal and be comfortable with who we are and not become fearful or afraid or not know what to do. And so it's all being set up for us. So I know that this sounds a little bit crazy and it's a little bit far-fetched, but I hope that you all really consider what's being said and really truly recognize that we do have the ability to shift and change. And I hope that you really look at yourself and recognize that you can do it without fear. You can let go of the past. You can let go of yesterday and walk into a new way of being without being fearful of what the outcome will be. And that's what's waiting for us in 2025. So I honor all of you and thank you for listening, and yay for January 1st. And I'll talk to you guys next month.